You know, Vampire Diaries is one of those shows that have no business lasting that long. In fact, I don't really believe it should have gone past season 5. But because it lasted that long, it's probably the reason why a lot of people don't actually view Vampire Diaries with the same fondness as they do with the originals. Now, don't get me wrong, the Vampire Diaries is a very popular show, but in terms of quality, it did start to decrease greatly the longer it actually carried on. Mainly because it started to get ridiculous very quickly. So, join us, I rank the 8 seasons of the Vampire Diaries.
I am never gonna change. Lily is never gonna change, and you are never gonna change. You're never gonna stop straining to find one tiny speck of redemption in Lily, and she's never gonna stop disappointing you.
You're wrong. You don't know the whole story.
I don't want to know the whole story, Stefan. I don't want to know any more excuses or lies or anything that tells me anything other than the way that I know it went down. Our mother faked her death, left her sons behind, started a new family, and went out of her way to forget us forever. That is the only story that matters, Stefan. She tossed us aside without any concern of what would happen to us. As far as I'm concerned, she deserves what she gets.
You know, season 7 being dead last is pretty much expected because it literally has the worst aspect of everything in the Vampire Diaries. Literally, the characters were at their worst, the villains were at their worst, the writing was at its worst. Even the acting was at its worst. This is probably Damon and Stefan's worst season. Bonnie wasn't really utilized until like right at the end. Caroline was basically a background character, and the only time she was essential was in a stupid love triangle between her, Stefan, and Alaric, which is really creepy seeing as Alaric literally taught her when she was underage. I do not know why the writers thought this was a good idea, but for some reason they did, mainly because you can tell they really ran off ideas. Like season 7 was them throwing everything at the wall and hoping it sticks. It did not. Raina as a big bad was boring and lackluster. The heretics were terrible. Maybe 1 or 2 were somewhat decent, but the rest were just awful or just non-existent. Or just plain boring. The St. Johns were even worse than them. They were useless, boring, and literally nothing is captivating about them. Like, they were so bad that in my first watch of the Vampire Diaries, I genuinely forgot that they were actually in the show. Everything about season 7 was just the Vampire Diaries at its worst. Some might say the reason why it got that bad was because there was no Elena, and I can assure you, even if Elena was there, it would have still been that bad. Like, you can just tell that season 7 was just writer's fatigue. Like, they just didn't care anymore. That's why I believe that season 7 is probably one of the worst seasons in the entire verse. Not just the Vampire Diaries, in the entire verse. Literally up there with the worst of legacies. That's how bad I actually believe season 7 was.
I've been wondering what happened to Enzo's spirits at the moment of his death. And finally, I have my answer. When Enzo died, you screamed, and something extraordinary happened at the moment of your deepest pain. A powerful psychic blast created an entire world, a private dimension linked only to you. Hidden, even from me. Do you realize how rare that is? In all my thousands of years, not a single person alive has ever done anything like what you did. Like what I did. But sadly, Enzo's soul belongs to me.
Season 8 was a slightly better version of season 7, mainly because, unlike season 7, it wasn't entirely boring. Like, you actually remember certain characters, including new characters, for example, Cade and the Sirens. Although some people hate the Sirens, you still at least remember them. However, in season 7, you barely remember most of the characters that were actually introduced in season 7. In season 8, in terms of the main characters, they were really non-existent. Like, aside from Bonnie, none of the main characters were really that important. Like, they were just as important as Jeremy in like season 3. Which, I'm not complaining, I love Bonnie, and I really wanted her to be a centerpiece character after Nina left. But again, at least have other main characters actually have a really good storyline, which didn't really happen, they sort of were just there. Like, Damon's storyline was just tied to an unconscious body. Stefan's storyline was just Caroline and Ripper and stuff. Same with Stefan basically, Superman stuff. Caroline was just her babies, that's kind of it really. Alaric was just doing research and stuff, that's kind of it really. And Enzo was just Bonnie and stuff, so that's kind of it for them really. Other than Bonnie, none of them really tied into the main villains, except for maybe Damon and Enzo at the start. And for you to have a season like that, you need a really, really good villain, which season 8 didn't have. They have great concepts, but the delivery was not that good. In fact, it was terrible. Cade and the Sirens as a concept is really good, but the delivery was terrible. The Sirens were annoying and Cade was lackluster, which is just as bad as being terrible. And the reason why I said he's lackluster is not because he's boring, but because everything he did before that amounted to nothing. Like I said in the plot armor video, they really wanted Katherine to be the main villain, as in the final villain. So basically they did everything to get rid of Cade before Katherine showed up, which undoes his entire character. Like Cade was this all-powerful being, but no, he was getting manipulated by Katherine all along. And there's no point in Katherine saying that he was manipulating Cade all along, because he achieved nothing. Cade wanted the Salvatores because she wanted the Salvatores. Why would she want them? What would that even amount to? What was the point of that? Like literally everything about the last few episodes of season 8 was literally just done to undo all of Cade's character. Like this guy spent an entire episode searching for the only weapon that could kill him in the entire world. He managed to obtain said weapon. And what did he do with said weapon? He decided to leave it in front of the guy that just tried to kill him with that exact same weapon. And this guy took that said weapon and killed him with it. Enough said.
What are you doing?
Oh, I'm outing myself as not Stefan. Obviously. Don't be afraid. Don't move.
What's happening?
We've met before, actually, when I was appearing as your daughter. The batch you're heading. Does that ring any bells?
Silas.
Indeed. I am the 2,000-year-old immortal that Caroline and her friends thought they got rid of.
I know what you're thinking. Why is season 5 ranked here? Isn't that a season with Katherine and Silas in it? Yes. But although they're very entertaining and are very decent characters, I guess, they were only in 7 episodes out of 22, meaning about 1/3. So the other 2/3 were literally just dreadful. Yeah, of course, Silas was technically in some episodes in the later part of season 5, but all in all, after they died, the season literally just went straight downhill. Every single storyline in season 5 was just dreadful except for one, which is Katherine and Nadia. Everything else was literally just awful. In fact, some of the storylines ruined certain characters. For example, they had Caroline sleeping with Klaus, which is something that Caroline would never do, especially seeing as literally that very year, Klaus killed Tyler's mom and massacred all of his friends. Not to mention he also bit her. Yes, of course, Caroline had a thing for him, but she would never do that. At least, not that soon. And it was only made because he wanted to create a cheap storyline for Tyler and Caroline to have a conflict, which was just pointless. And I'm very certain the reason why they wanted Tyler and Caroline to have a conflict was because they have no reason, as in no idea, as to what to do with Tyler's character. He was sort of just there, as in they don't know what storyline to give him. And they don't want to kill him off because for some reason the writers tend to get too attached to certain characters, and because they get attached to certain characters, they don't actually die. They just keep creating random storylines for them to actually be involved in. So a lot of the time certain storylines either feel forced or characters sort of just exist in the background. Case in point, Matt Donovan and Jeremy. But anyways, in terms of the other characters, Damon and Elena didn't really do much. Like the only thing interesting about them was them becoming Augustine vampires. Other than that, they really didn't have any compelling storyline. In fact, season 5 somehow made me get annoyed with Elena even more than I actually was in season 4. And Stefan, outside of the Silas and Katya stuff, he wasn't really that great of a character. And the main villains, Silas, Katya were fine, and Marcus and the Travelers. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about them, but just know that they sucked.
I created the immortality spell 2,000 years ago. I could never die. So nature needed to find a balance. A version of me that could die. A shadow self. A doppelganger.
So this is finally your real face? You're another one of them.
Not exactly.
Hello, my shadow self.
I think season 4 was when you actually noticed there was a massive shift in writing. Like, you can tell this show is about to go downhill. Now, I'm not saying that season 4 was awful. It really wasn't. But the problems that people keep pointing out about the Vampire Diaries stems from season 4. Every single storyline of a main character, except for one, has something to do with a romantic partner. Like, it has to be a romantic storyline. Don't know why. Bonnie was the only one that didn't really have her main storyline be a romantic storyline. And her storyline was by far the best storyline in season 4. Elena was her love triangle storyline, in which it was very obvious who she already picked. It's also very obvious who the writers had already picked. So why are we spending the entirety of season 4 on it? Like, give Stefan something else to do. In season 3, he was great on his own. His storyline was great when he has nothing to do with a romantic storyline. But for some reason, they keep putting him in a romantic storyline, which serves zero purpose for his character. I don't even know what the hell Damon's storyline was in season 4. Like, his storyline was literally just Elena. That's it. They made Elena into a walking contradiction. They also created a love triangle between Caroline, Tyler, and Klaus, which there was really no point of it because we later on found out that Klaus, well, left and went to New Orleans. So there was literally no payoff to this love triangle. So again, it was really pointless. Because the whole purpose of Klaus and Caroline's relationship was to show that Klaus is actually capable of changing. And that can't work if Klaus doesn't change, which he did not do at all. In terms of the villains, Silas was alright as a main villain. Although for some reason I believe he's the only main villain that I believe wasn't even part of the main storyline, because the main storyline was basically a love triangle. And in terms of the other villains, they didn't really do much. Again, Jeremy and Matt are still alive even though they're terrible characters. They tried to give Jeremy a storyline in season 4, but he just isn't a good character. He's not compelling at all. No storyline is going to save him.
Rough day, huh, Damon? Sorry. Manners, I'm Kai. Nice to meet you. Pork rind?
You know, some people actually have season 6 ranked a lot higher. Some might have it as high as number 2, which is insane to me. But the reason why I have season 6 ranked somewhat lower than some people would expect is because I think this is probably the most average season. The only thing going for it is because it's very entertaining. Like, I'm not even exaggerating when I say this is the most average season. Like, come to think about it, there really isn't much great scenes in season 6. There were good ones, sure, but great scenes, not much. Like, the characters weren't awful. There wasn't really any awful storyline, but in terms of great storylines, there really wasn't any. Especially in terms of writing. There wasn't really any great character. I think the only somewhat good storyline, or any storyline I could even have higher than good, would be Bonnie and Damon. But other than that, really, there really isn't much. Season 6 was kind of bang average on all fronts. And you might say, what about Kai? Kai is not a great character. He's just very entertaining. That's about it.
Pardon me. Is this the men's room?
Yes, I was just, I was just... It's a long story. Thank you.
If you swap season 1 and season 6, I don't really mind because both of them are probably neck and neck for me. For the same reason why I have season 1 ranked above season 6, which is that season 1 actually had great characters, unlike season 6. Damon as a character was just really well written in season 1. Katherine as an overarching villain was just really well written in season 1, even though we didn't really get to see her until the very end. However, season 1 does have a massive glaring problem, which is that other than Damon and Katherine, they have a massive villain problem. Other than those two and maybe Anna, every single other villain sucked. Like, badly. Logan fell, sucked. Anna's friends, sucked. The Team Vampires are just dreadful and just eyesore, and I really hated them on screen. Do you know how bad characters have to be for me not to remember their names? I've watched the Vampire Diaries multiple times and I still don't remember their names. They are that bad. Everything else was just average. Stefan average, Elena average, Bonnie average, Caroline average. Pretty much everyone else was average. So just because of that, I don't really mind you swapping season 6 and season 1 in terms of your ranking.
Now that's more like it.
There is really no debate in terms of the top 2. The only debate is who is actually number 1. Which I don't really mind either one. You can put season 2 at number 1 or season 3 at number 1. I wouldn't really mind because they're both that good. In terms of season 2, this is by far Elena's best season in literally everything. Some of the best scenes in the show was in season 2. Like I keep mentioning Katherine reading her family journal and crying. And the reason why I keep mentioning it is because that scene is so good. Katherine didn't say anything, but it's still that good because it's just that well acted. There's just so many good things about season 2. Katherine throughout this entire season was really good. Stefan was bang average in the season, but Damon was really good this season. I think this is probably Damon's best season along with season 1. And again, like I said, this is by far Elena's best ever season. Best performance, best acting, best everything. And Klaus as an overarching villain was really great, as in a really good, well-written character. Even before we actually get to see him, the payoff was really, really good. The introduction of Elijah was really good, although there's a bit of plot armor to it, but he still was a solid character. Too bad that he was basically useless from then on. So yeah, it's a really good season all around. Not many flaws about it, although there are some. For example, the abandoned storylines that Lucy Bennett, who told Bonnie that she might see Bonnie later on, which she never did. It turns out she was alive to season 6 and died then, but for some reason she never showed up again. But yeah, other than those few minor problems, still a great season.
Kill this one quickly. Make that one suffer. I'll be in the car.
Please don't. Please.
Now again, like I said in season 2, I don't really mind you having season 2 as number 1. But the reason why I have season 3 as number 1 is because literally the best storylines in the entire show, in fact, some of the best storylines in the entire verse, happened in season 3 of the Vampire Diaries. Stefan was so good in this season that it pains me that he never got this high again. Ripper Stefan was fantastically written. No Humanity Stefan was fantastically written. Vengeful Stefan was written even better. Literally almost everything about Stefan's character was just great. Unfortunately, however, they did try to avert him back to being the loverboy Superman Stefan, which just went back to him being mediocre and average. It kind of annoys me because season 3 was the first and the last time we actually get a greatly written Stefan storyline or greatly written Stefan character arc. Never again did that happen, and never did it happen before that. Klaus in season 3 was the best written villain in the entire verse. The second best written villain in the entire verse was season 3 Stefan. Klaus and Stefan's storyline was just that good. In fact, it was so good that I did not care that most of the other characters weren't really that important in this season. And Rebecca showed up and added more complexity in terms of the problems with immortality, because when people explain that they're immortal and people say that, oh, this is actually a flaw, a lot of people don't actually understand what that actually means. Like, some people have problems with immortality, but people don't know why they have a problem with immortality. And Rebecca showed that based on the fact that the things that Rebecca actually wants, she can't actually have because of who she actually became. Because she's not human anymore, she can't have human things. Everything that she does is literally just her pretending. Her going to prom, that's her pretending. Her being happy, that's her pretending. Her falling in love randomly with people, that's her pretending. It might seem easy because it is easy, because she's pretending that she's in love with people. She tries to fall in love with people, but she can't, because that's a human emotion and she struggles to have it. Especially when balanced with her family and her life and her being a vampire. The only romantic relationship that she had that she genuinely cherished was with Matt. In fact, I genuinely believe that Rebecca's story should have ended with Matt and her marrying Matt and having a very boring human life. But yeah, there's not much problems with season 3. The only problem that I have was with the ending, mainly because they really just didn't want to kill the originals off. So they created some BS silent crap that wasn't really explained how exactly that spell actually came in effect, as in, was it created before or was it just created by Esther? None of that was even stated, because they just didn't want to kill off Klaus or any of the more popular mikaelsons off. Hence the creation of Alaric, which, don't get me wrong, entertaining character, badass, but in terms of writing, it's a massive fall compared to Klaus. But all in all, I don't really think this is much of a problem in terms of my rankings for season 3. So yeah, I definitely will have season 3 at number 1.